ones, I'm Bia, welcome back to my channel. And as you can probably tell from the whole vibe that's going around, it is finally autumn and I am living. It's my favorite season. It's the best season. Let's call it. You know, it's arguably the superior season. Let me know, is autumn also your favorite season? Because it should be. It's actually still pretty hot here in Portugal because it's actually always pretty warm here in Portugal. So I'm just here drinking my tea, pretending it's already weather appropriate. We can deal. So I put together some book recommendations to kickstart autumn for all of you, so you can celebrate Mabon, which is the celebration of the fall equinox, which just passed. You are obviously watching this after it has passed, but you can still celebrate, it's still autumn. So this recommendation video is more focused on autumn as a whole, in the beginning of fall, and I will be later having a video that's more focused on spooky reads, closer to Halloween for Samhain, so having two separate videos for autumn. I think it's well deserved. If a season deserves multiple recommendations according to different vibes that it holds, it's autumn. Full disclosure, I just spilled some tea on my chair, so that's what's up. So that's actual autumn mood, you know, it's spilling tea everywhere. Literally, not just, you know, metaphorically spilling tea. So shall we begin? I should probably set this down while maneuvering books, knowing me as I do. The first recommendation is a childhood favorite. I remember reading or rereading because I believe I read this multiple times around the age of 10. And I am talking about the Spiderwick Chronicles by Holly Black and Tony DiTerlizzi. I believe you'll be familiar with Holly Black because she has come out with tons of amazing YA books, mostly surrounding Fae, and let me tell you, this is not an exception. So this is a children's book that revolves around three siblings who move to this very old house that belongs to their family. And I'm gonna show you the map. It's so cute. It's all yellowed. Look at these illustrations. So as you can see, it's very atmospheric. And this house is right, it's in the middle of these woods, which are filled with magical creatures, and so these siblings will come in contact with all of these magical creatures throughout the books. This isn't the first one, this is actually the second book. I just picked it out randomly because it had the most autumn cover, I guess. So these three siblings would delve into this fantastical world, and I love it so much. It has a lot of magical creatures like goblins, and goblin spits can make you see magical creatures. Like, they have to spit into your eyes and you'll be able to see them. It has a lot of whimsical elements that I really enjoy. But basically, the whole environment of this book is so autumnal. There's a forest, there's this old mansion. Just the illustrations themselves are filled with beautiful, gigantic trees and fairies and magical creatures and mushrooms. It's the perfect vibe. It's exactly what I need for fall. This is great if you're looking for an endearing read that will just warm up your heart and make you feel all magical and cozy inside. So next up, I have a teenagehood favorite, which is actually one of my all-time favorite books, but I remember loving it so much while in high school and the beginning of university. And I am talking about Franny and Zooey by J.D. Salinger. I love J.D. Salinger in general. I love all of his work. The Catcher in the Rye is one of my favorite books. Catcher in the Rye you'll most likely be familiar with. If you're in the US, maybe you have to read it for school, and it's just an American classic. But it's a very polarizing book. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. To me, Franny and Zooey is... So to me, even if you didn't like The Catcher in the Rye, I think you will probably still like Franny and Zooey. I think it's a Salinger that more people will enjoy. So Franny and Zooey is about two siblings, Franny and Zooey, and about their relationship, their family, and their dialogues, their conversations about all of these very interesting themes, and about them growing up, about their view on life, about their own lives, and about their inner lives, and about how they perceive them, each other perceive them. So, not necessarily in terms of plot, but the whole vibe of this book, the whole idea of these two siblings having these amazing conversations, it reminds me a little bit of Gilmore Girls, which is a show that I love rewatching during autumn. It's one of my favorite shows, and I think it's the very fast-paced, very packed dialogue. So if you didn't like The Catcher in the Rye for the fact that you have this one narrator who is basically having this inner monologue, although he does encounter other characters, even when he is talking to them, it is mostly about how he's perceiving that conversation. In Franny and Zooey, you have that same quality, that same introspection, but through the dialogue between two characters and shifting points of view. So I feel like if you didn't like The Catcher in the Rye, you should give it a try. You should give this a try because I think you might actually enjoy it. It's definitely classic Salinger. You start reading it and you know who the author is, but it's much more likable, I would say. So it definitely has that cozy feeling of family and of a close relationship, and the setting itself, I think it's very autumnal. Next up, we have a YA fantasy, which is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So, if you've watched any of my other videos, you will know that Uprooted wasn't necessarily one of my favorite reads of the year, but I have now come to the realization of why that was. When I picked up Uprooted, I was expecting something else, and I believe that I would have enjoyed it much more had I known what it actually was, what to actually expect. So all I knew was that this book was very much beloved and considered a holy grail of YA fantasy, in a nutshell. I do think that it's great that I knew nothing about the plot, so all I knew was this very basic premise that you have on the back of the book saying that every 10 years a girl is taken by this dragon, and that the year that we're reading about, the choice is very unpredictable. So I don't wish that I had known anything about the plot itself, but I do wish that I had known that this is a very slow-paced book. So why do I recommend this for autumn? I recommend this for the atmosphere. If there's one thing that this book is incredibly good at, is at setting the mood. It has an incredible world building because you only have this tiny taste into this world, but it's still so compelling and so believable that even though you don't really know a lot about what's surrounding them and about a deeper understanding of how society works, etc., this little taste that you get is enough to make this world very vivid, very believable, very concrete. And another thing is the magic system. The magic system in Uprooted is incredible. It is so well crafted. I would say it is very unique, but I'm not going to go into that much detail because I really do think that this is a great book to read not knowing a lot about the plot itself or very specific elements. What I do need you to know is that this is a very slow-paced book and that you should pick it up to be completely immersed in this world. So not necessarily for plot points, but just to be carried away with a character across the places that she goes through, and to be uprooted like she is, but from reality. That sounded cool. So I think that if I had had this in mind when I picked it up, I would have loved it. So this is definitely a 5-star in terms of atmosphere and mood setting. So I highly recommend it if that's the sort of fantasy that you like. So keeping up with the fantastical mood, my next recommendation is one that I have actually already made in my channel, and that is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. So if you are familiar with the works of Neil Gaiman, you might be asking, okay, there are so many great books by him to be recommended for autumn. I would actually put a lot of them in my other video for spooky reads, but for an atmospherical autumnal read, I would definitely go with Stardust. And why? Stardust is a rather short novel, but in it contains a fantastical world. It contains incredible world building. It contains fantastical and magical elements. It contains mythical creatures, mythology, incredible characters, incredible relationships, a fantastical journey. There's a unicorn. There's so much packed into this small book that it is almost unbelievable. So here we follow Tristan, who lives in a village which is across the wall from this fantastical world of fairy. So this village is in sort of a threshold between the regular world and the fantastical one. So Tristan will go into fairy to retrieve a fallen star. So this is another book that is incredible at setting the mood again. So I think this is incredible if you're looking for a magical read that's not Harry Potter, that contains fantasy and romance, something magical and whimsical, not spooky, but very romantic, very cozy, very adventurous, and a very happy and lighthearted. The world building is just sublime, and I highly recommend it for autumn. And now, please bear with me with my next recommendation. And no, it is not Harry Potter. Let's get that out of the way. Obviously, I recommend that you reread Harry Potter if you haven't read it already. Let's just put it out there. I might even pick one of them myself. But no, this is expectable for me, but it is not Harry Potter. So first let me say I might sneak this author into most recommendations just because I feel like it should be my life mission to make you all read at least, one of his books or series. So the specific series, and actually a specific book within the series that I'm talking about, is The Fellowship of the Ring within Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So, yes, I went there. I'm recommending Tolkien. So let's reiterate. 1. Most fantasies are appropriate to be read in autumn. Therefore, most Tolkien is appropriate to be read in autumn. But Lord of the Rings is the most appropriate to be read in autumn. And why? I am concentrating in atmosphere and setting and mood. So in The Fellowship of the Ring, we have 3 of my favorite settings of all fantasy, not just in Lord of the Rings. Those 3 locations are the Shire, Bree, and specifically the Prancing Pony, and Rivendell, of course. So the Shire is obvious. I'm just gonna paint a picture. Imagine yourself sitting at Bag End, drinking some tea or some ale, whatever floats your boat. The fire is crackling and you're having a small chat with Bilbo and Frodo, and you're there on party business. And you're listening to Bilbo talk about all of his amazing adventures, and it's just cozy and warm and happy. It's everything that I want out of autumn. Now I really feel like rereading Lord of the Rings. And then the Prancing Pony and Bree. To me, any inn is inherently cozy. Most inns in fantasy worlds are safe havens. They are places, they symbolize a place where you can stop and rest and recharge for the next leg of your journey. So it's just peaceful and restful, and I love it so much. And then Rivendell. Rivendell, if there's a more restful and peaceful and cozy atmosphere in the world, it's Rivendell. And one thing, curiosity about fantasy theory. Rivendell is a polder, which means that it's a literal safe haven where evil can't reach. So when our protagonists are there, they are safe from what is after them, trying to harm them. So it is inherently a cozy, safe, warm, and happy place. When you read about Rivendell, you're supposed to feel calm and rested and free of anxiety. And that's just the coziest thing ever. You can just roam the libraries and hear the elves sing. Can I go to Rivendell now, please? Yes, thank you. Goodbye. And besides the settings, there's a very compelling reason for you to read Lord of the Rings this autumn, and that is the fact that Bilbo and Frodo's birthday falls on the 22nd of September. So that's right in the middle of the window for the fall equinox. So it should actually be mandatory that we read The Fellowship of the Ring in autumn, in September. Go read it. My last recommendation for today. I actually have a second life mission of recommending another author in most of my videos, and that is Maggie Stiefvater. So what book am I recommending by her for autumn? That is obviously the Raven Cycle, the entirety of the Raven Cycle. I have recently come to the conclusion that there is a Maggie Stiefvater book for each season. Yeah. So I might do something about that. I've actually already recommended the Scorpio Races for summer. So I think her most appropriate book for autumn is The Raven Boys. So The Raven Boys, if you don't already know what it is about 4 boys and 1 girl and a dead Welsh king. That's the gist of it. So on one side we have this background of witches, of the supernatural, and on the other we have a more academic take on mythology and the supernatural as well, but from a more folklore vibe. So in terms of atmosphere, which is what we're focusing on, we have this witchy vibe meeting this dark academia vibe. If there's one thing that Maggie Stiefvater excels at, it is setting the moods. It is creating the perfect atmosphere. Her books are extremely atmospherical. Her prose is very lyrical, very beautiful, ingrained with imagery. So if you've read anything by her, you'll know what I'm talking about. Most of her books, and I say most because I haven't read all of her books yet somehow, so I can't say all of them for sure, but at least most of her books have that same writing style. So The Raven Boys excels at it. We have multiple settings within this series, and all of them are so well fleshed out, so textured and embedded with symbolism that it just... One, I'm a sucker for magical realism, so I am biased, but this is one of my favorite series of all time. It might be my all-time favorite YA series. So naming a couple of settings, we have this house that is literally filled with witches. So we have Blue's family, and these are all women who are, again, witches. And then we have the school that our Raven Boys go to. Very Dead Poet Society, Rory goes to visit Harvard sort of vibe. And then we have Capeswater, which is a literal magical forest. Any book or series that has a heavy focus on, you know, woods or a specific forest, I will probably enjoy, and I will probably love to read it in autumn. If you start now, you might be able to reach the final book around Halloween, depending on your reading speed. And the further you get into the series, the more magical it gets, because this is magical realism. So the first book is more realistic with smaller magical elements to it, while the fourth book is just nonsense. So you can get to the very magical nonsense closer to Halloween. That just sounds lovely. So think about doing that. And I definitely hope that you enjoy fantasy, because if not, this is not the video for you. I will be back with a spookier book recommendation closer to Halloween or Samhain, which I'm also very excited for. But for now, let's just celebrate the cozier, warm aspects of autumn. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And please consider liking and subscribing. All of my social media is linked down below if you'd like to follow me elsewhere. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!